So Dan, do you mind telling our listeners the case that you selected, and
Yes.
then we're going to tell them about it, and we're going to talk a little bit about why you picked it afterwards, but tell us what it is.
All right. This is the Jennifer Pandos story. It was a 15-year-old in 1987 who went missing and then was later, I think, declared deceased, yet a body was never found. So if you're true crime fans, and you are because you're listening to this podcast, it's the Jennifer Pandos story. It became the subject of a documentary series on a platform that I'm striking against, so I won't mention it. But it's fascinating, a fascinating look. Oh my God, it's a fascinating look at what a mystery does to a family, and how the lack of clarity and closure can lead you down so many paths. I mean, this case blows me away because I'm absolutely the person who's like, oh my God, it's definitely him. Oh, no, it's definitely her. Oh my God, never mind. Forget what I just said. It's definitely that person. Oh, no, I got it.
Well, we are going to give our listeners a crash course because I actually love that you chose this case, Dan, because this isn't a big headline case that a lot of people know about. So we're going to give the basic information, and then we're going to jump into our theories and hopefully solve the case.
I hope so.
Rabia, we've talked lots of times before about what our greatest nightmare is as parents, right?
Right. Definitely the greatest nightmare of any parent is if their child goes missing.
You know what makes it worse?
What?
If your child disappears from your own home.
Yeah, that's pretty awful.
And you know what's worse than that?
Tell me.
If you are the only suspect in your child's disappearance and your other kids are convinced you killed and disappeared your missing child and don't believe you when you say you had nothing to do with it.
That is a nightmare upon nightmare.
Well, that's what happened in the case we're covering today, the case of Jennifer Pandos. Jennifer was a 15-year-old high school sophomore when she just simply vanished from her home one night. Jennifer lived with her parents, Margie and Ron Pandos, in Williamsburg, Virginia, and she had an older brother, Stephen, who was away at college when she disappeared. The date was February 9th, 1987, and Jennifer was a fairly typical teen dealing with high school heartbreak and butting heads with her parents. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend, Tony Tobler, and that was the first real romance and the one that seemed serious from both sides. The two wrote letters and notes full of love and anguish prolifically, and at one point, Toby declared he wanted to buy her a promise ring and marry her one day. Then came a surprise pregnancy in August 1986, and the two decided the right thing to do was for Jennifer to get an abortion and part ways. Toby had begun seeing another girl, Corey, but little did Corey know that the two ex-lovers were still seeing each other on and off and hooking up.
February 9th, 1987 was a cold Monday night, and Jennifer's mother, Margie, came in to tell her to straighten up her room and give her grandmother a call. Jen responded positively and went about picking up her room. She presumably stayed in her room the rest of the evening, chatting on the phone with her friend Sharon. They talked about Toby, who Jennifer was fuming at for some reason, and while she was on the phone, Jennifer's father, Ron, came into the room a few times to tell her it was late and she needed to hang up. Sharon recalled later that she had never heard Ron Pandos so angry, that he was raging at his daughter. But rather than being intimidated, Jennifer responded with attitude, calling her father by his first name. She said something along the lines of, "Okay, fine, Ron," and told Sharon she'd see her at school the next day. Except she didn't. Jennifer never showed up for school on February 10th, 1987, and so Sharon called her house to find out what was going on. Jennifer's mother, Margie, picked up the phone and told Sharon that Jen was sick and stayed home that day. The next day, on February 11th, Jen missed school again, so Sharon called the house again. This time, Margie Pandos told her daughter's friend that she was out with her father.
The truth was that Jen was neither sick nor out with her father. Another day or so had passed before Mr. and Mrs. Pandos called the police to tell a different story. Jennifer, they said, had disappeared. The last time they both saw her was on that cold Monday night when she was asked to clean up her room and call her grandmother. The next morning, according to Margie Pandos, she woke up and went downstairs to Jen's room to make sure she was getting ready for school. She expected, as always, to hear the shower running, but this morning there was a dead silence behind Jen's closed bedroom door. Margie, assuming that Jen had overslept, tried to enter the room and found that it was locked. She pounded on the door, but no response. Now, she was starting to worry and called for her husband Ron to come help. He stumbled down the stairs, half asleep, and began beating on the door, calling for Jen. They were eventually able to get into the room, only to find it completely empty, neat as a pin. And all of Jen's belongings seemed to be in place, but Jen was nowhere to be found. The only thing out of place was a handwritten note placed at the foot of the still-made bed.
The note was written in widely spaced, awkward handwriting, as if it was written by someone using their non-dominant hand to disguise their actual handwriting. It read, "Your daughter's with me. She's fine. She's having some problems, though, and needs some time away from this place, 3 to 5 days max. She is like a daughter to me, and I'm like a dad to her. Here are some of Jennifer's quotes. I'm fine. I just need time to think. Both of you please go to work tomorrow because I will try to call you. I won't call you at home, only at one of y'all's work. Cancel my doctor's appointment on Friday. Please put money into my bank account. Do not call the police. I can easily find out if you do. I may never come back home. Don't tell my friends about this. Just tell them that I'm sick. Please do what I've asked." And just as the note asked, Ron and Margie Pandos didn't call the police. Not for 3 days at least. And when they finally did, according to them, the police treated the case like Jen was a runaway. They allegedly made flyers and reached out to Jennifer's friends, but apparently didn't tell their own close family for over a month. Although, according to both of them, Ron, the father, traveled to Pennsylvania to tell his mother what was going on a couple of days immediately after Jen went missing. And when Margie finally called Stephen, Jennifer's older brother, to ask if he'd seen Jen, over a week had gone by, and she sounded calm and almost unconcerned.
So, something about how his parents were acting didn't sit right with Stephen. He knew that their father had a violent temper and suffered from PTSD after returning from Vietnam. He also knew their mother had never protected either of their children from their father's rages, and she was intimidated by her own husband. He began asking questions, but getting the runaround from both parents, and over time became convinced that his own father, Ron Pandos, had killed Jennifer and that his mom was covering it up. Stephen believed that his mother had written that odd note that was left in Jennifer's room. He was sure of it. His conviction grew so strong that years later, as an adult, he gathered all of the case material he could find and threatened to sue them both for wrongful death. He tried for a decade to get his mother to admit that she knew exactly what happened to Jennifer, even getting her an immunity deal with the state. But Margie Pandos never caved to the pressure. She knew nothing, she said, but he still didn't believe it. Neither did the officers or the investigators in charge of the case. Margie was interrogated repeatedly, and both parents failed polygraph tests. At one point, Ron, in custody for embezzlement, drew a map and told investigators that if they got him on a plane, he would take them to Jennifer's body, but then quickly backed out of his statement. Everything about how his parents acted screamed guilt to Stephen. So Stephen cut them off completely, not even allowing them to see their grandchildren because he was certain that they were responsible for the murder of his little sister. What he didn't know was there was another possible very strong suspect, one that was dismissed early on in the case, but had possibly confessed to the crime to someone else. That suspect was Jen's boyfriend, Tony Tobler. 36 years after Jennifer disappeared, there's still no trace of her. No body, no sightings, no proof of life or death. And no arrests have been made in the case either, despite the fact that there seemed to be only 2 possibilities as to who was responsible for Jennifer's disappearance. So, what happened to Jennifer? Let's talk about it.